Ted Bundy, United States. Ted Bundy, one of America's most infamous serial killers, confessed to murdering 30 women during the 1970s, though the true number of his victims is believed to be much higher. Bundy was a charming and intelligent individual, traits he used to lure his victims. His method involved feigning injury or impersonating an authority figure to gain their trust before abducting, assaulting, and ultimately killing them. Bundy's targets were young women, often college students, whom he strangled or bludgeoned before disposing of their bodies in secluded areas. His cunning and ability to escape custody multiple times only added to his terrifying legend. Bundy even managed to escape from prison twice, continuing his killing spree after each escape, which added to the widespread panic and media frenzy surrounding his case. Andrei Chikatilo, Soviet Union, Russia. Known as the Butcher of Rostov, Andrei Chikatilo terrorized the Soviet Union from the 1970s to the 1990s, with a confirmed 52 murders, although some estimates put the number closer to 56. Chikatilo's victims were primarily women and children, whom he lured with promises of money or food before brutally attacking them. His method involved stabbing, slashing, and disemboweling, driven by a deep-seated rage and sexual frustration. Chikatilo's heinous acts, coupled with the inefficiencies of Soviet law enforcement at the time, allowed him to evade capture for years, spreading fear across the region. His eventual capture in 1990 came after years of botched investigations and the wrongful imprisonment of innocent suspects, highlighting serious flaws in the Soviet justice system. Jack the Ripper, United Kingdom. The mysterious figure known as Jack the Ripper is attributed with the gruesome murders of at least 5 women in London's Whitechapel district in 1888. The victims, all prostitutes, were found with their throats slashed and bodies mutilated, suggesting the killer had some anatomical knowledge. Despite extensive investigations and numerous theories, Jack the Ripper's identity remains unknown, and the case is one of the most famous unsolved mysteries in criminal history. The sheer brutality and sensationalist media coverage of the time cemented Jack the Ripper's place in the annals of psycho killers. Theories about his identity range from a deranged surgeon to members of the royal family, adding layers of intrigue and speculation to this day. Pedro Alonso López, Colombia. Pedro Alonso López, also known as the Monster of the Andes, is one of history's most prolific serial killers, with a confessed victim count of over 300 young girls across Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador in the 1970s and early 1980s. López targeted girls between the ages of 8 and 12, luring them away with gifts or sweets before raping and strangling them. He buried many of his victims in mass graves. Arrested in Ecuador in 1980, López's horrifying admissions of mass murder shocked the world, but his release in 1998 due to good behavior remains a contentious and frightening issue. López's current whereabouts are unknown, leading to widespread fear that he could be continuing his murderous spree in anonymity. Jeffrey Dahmer, United States. Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee cannibal, was responsible for the brutal murders of 17 young men and boys between 1978 and 1991. Dahmer's method involved luring his victims to his apartment with promises of money or alcohol, where he would drug, sexually assault, and strangle them. What sets Dahmer apart was his subsequent acts of necrophilia, dismemberment, and cannibalism. He preserved body parts as trophies, and his gruesome crimes only came to light when one of his intended victims managed to escape and alert the police. Dahmer's chilling confessions and the discovery of his house of horrors made him one of the most infamous serial killers in modern history. His trial and eventual murder in prison by a fellow inmate added another dark chapter to his story. Aileen Wuornos, United States. Aileen Wuornos, often dubbed the Damsel of Death, was a rare female serial killer who murdered 7 men in Florida between 1989 and 1990. Wuornos, a prostitute, claimed her victims picked her up and then attempted to assault her, leading her to shoot them in self-defense. However, the brutal nature of the killings, with each victim shot multiple times, suggested otherwise. Wuornos's troubled childhood and history of abuse were central to her defense, yet she was ultimately sentenced to death and executed in 2002. Her life and crimes have been the subject of significant media attention, including the film Monster. Wuornos's case sparked debates about the death penalty and the impact of severe childhood trauma on criminal behavior. Luis Garavito, Colombia. Luis Garavito, known as La Bestia, the Beast, is one of the most prolific serial killers with an estimated 138 confirmed murders, though he claimed to have killed over 300 boys. Operating in Colombia during the 1990s, Garavito targeted street children, luring them with promises of money or work. His method involved binding, torturing, and sexually assaulting his victims before killing them. The discovery of mass graves filled with the remains of young boys led to his arrest in 1999. Garavito's case is particularly shocking due to the sheer number of victims and the systematic brutality he employed. Despite his heinous crimes, Garavito could potentially be released early due to Colombian laws on maximum prison sentences, a prospect that horrifies the public. Harold Shipman, United Kingdom. Dr. Harold Shipman, a British general practitioner, is believed to have killed at least 250 of his patients over a 23-year period, making him one of history's most prolific serial killers. Shipman's method was to administer lethal doses of painkillers, primarily morphine, to elderly patients. His position of trust as a doctor allowed him to operate undetected for years. The extent of his crimes came to light in 1998 when suspicious colleagues and families noticed a pattern of deaths. Shipman's case shocked the medical community and led to significant changes in the oversight of medical professionals in the UK. Shipman hanged himself in his prison cell in 2004, depriving the victims' families of further answers. Richard Ramirez, United States. Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, terrorized California between 1984 and 1985 with a spree of brutal home invasions, rapes, and murders. Ramirez's methods were varied and particularly gruesome. He used guns, knives, and blunt objects to kill his victims. He often mutilated the bodies and left satanic symbols at the crime scenes, adding a terrifying ritualistic aspect to his crimes. Ramirez targeted people of all ages, genders, and ethnicities, spreading widespread fear. His capture came after a high-profile manhunt, and he was sentenced to death, dying in prison from cancer before his execution could be carried out. Ramirez's dark charisma and court antics only added to his infamy, cementing his place in criminal history. John Wayne Gacy, United States. John Wayne Gacy, known as the Killer Clown due to his public persona as a clown performer, was convicted of murdering 33 young men and boys in the 1970s. Gacy lured his victims to his home, where he would sexually assault and strangle them. He buried most of the bodies in the crawl space beneath his house. Gacy's seemingly normal exterior as a community figure and businessman masked his horrifying crimes. His eventual arrest and the grisly discovery of the bodies led to his conviction and execution in 1994. Gacy's story is a chilling reminder of how appearances can be deceiving. The sheer number of victims and the prolonged period over which the murders occurred made his case one of the most notorious in American history. These psycho killers, with their horrific methods and chilling body counts, remind us of the darkest aspects of human nature. Each story offers a glimpse into the twisted minds that drove these individuals to commit such unimaginable acts and the impact their crimes had on their victims and society at large.